I'm Scott Allen Miller. It's the 17th of November, 2022, and this is my vlog of daily life in Leon, Nicaragua, and I was about to start recording outside when the rain started. So I knew it was coming, but it came earlier than expected. So I am doing a different camera angle in the hopes of keeping the tripod and everything from getting rained on while I record the show. Today is Thursday, and my day was pretty much completely dedicated to work. I have a lot going on tomorrow. It's going to take me out of the office and get some cool footage for you guys, doing some interesting stuff like going to tour a ranch, also known as a finca here in Nicaragua, out in La Paz Centro, and going to the baseball game. So make sure you're watching tomorrow for that. Today, pretty much just work. My one exciting thing is that Liesl has expressed a really strong interest in learning how to do video editing and helping me out with my vlogs. And so today, she spent a bit of time, actually sat down with me and edited an entire vlog episode for you guys. I think it was the episode for the 12th, but don't quote me on that. And I went through, I actually wrote out my 14 steps that I do on every video to make them the way that they are. And so she learned, I mean, it's going to take her some practice, but she learned exactly what I do. I have it all documented, and hopefully pretty soon she's going to start helping me make the show, which will help me immensely. There's so much time. For example, right now I'm recording the show. She could be working on an edit at the same time. Unfortunately, she's also normally watching the dogs while I'm doing this, so that doesn't help out a whole lot. But in 2 weeks, we're going to be in the new house, and then she won't have to watch the dogs, and they'll be a lot easier because she doesn't have to cross between the different places, because my office with the video editing gear is not in the house where she is with the dogs. And so coming back and forth is a big effort, and you can't just help out with the dogs and help out with the editing real quickly. So probably going to take about 2 weeks before she's able to really get into that. Then we're heading to the United States just 2 weeks after that. But that is when I expect to be getting my new laptop, which will be an Apple MacBook Air. If I have my druthers, that will give me another editing machine. And then she'll be able to edit during the day while I'm working. And that will be just totally different. Everything will change at that point because we can work at the same time rather than her trying. There's plenty of time for her to help me out now. But every time I have to run in or do anything, she would be in the way because that's my main workstation. Could use my secondary workstation, but it died for those who watched the episode a few weeks ago. That's why I need a new laptop. I'm running out of machines, which is the nature of, we've been here for 2 years. Things are going to get old and die, especially with the heat and humidity, the flexible power, and just being used a lot. So it really means a lot for me, though, that this is something that Liesl and I are going to be able to do together, and that she's really excited about doing something that I really enjoy doing. Like, it's going to be a good bonding experience and a cool thing for us to work on together, and all that. So happy about that. That's my exciting thing for the day. But otherwise, I took the entire day to either just do my normal work and do as many videos and editing as possible because I'm so far behind, and I know tomorrow is going to be just brutal. So I've got to get caught up a bit tonight, which I ended up working until very late. I spent the entire night working, and then tomorrow morning I got to work like crazy. Then, in theory, I'm going to have a good amount of time in the upcoming weekend to be able to get things done. So I'm hopeful that it will all get caught up and won't have any problems with that as my day. So today's topic. Before we get to it, please remember to like and subscribe. Add any comments below, ask any questions, just go down there. We have a very vibrant community. I love all the discussions that we get, and everybody's really friendly. It's really rare that we get negative comments or like trolling or anything like that. And when we do, we had the one that was really goofy about complaining that I didn't mention like every possible job or tell them where to go work, like as if I magically have. So it's funny because there are a lot of YouTube channels that are just scams, and they're like, here's 10 ways to instantly make money, and it feels like a good thing. Then you realize it doesn't really make money. The whole thing's a scam, right? They're just trying to, it's just clickbait at best and an outright con at worst. I have no particular one. Mostly it's just clickbait. That's all I'm saying. But my video was like explaining, you know, what you need to do to get a job. And he's like, you didn't list the jobs I could get. And I'm like, I don't know what jobs you can do, dude. But the video I made kind of ranting about that, I really appreciate. Like right now there's over 52 likes on it and like 300 views or something. I really appreciate the support on that one because I was like, why am I getting yelled at for this? And you guys came out and are like, no, he was being weird. It's cool. The community here is great. If you'd like to support the channel directly, I'm going to put a link. It is Buy Me a Coffee. You just go to that page, you swipe a credit card, and you can send me coffee. It doesn't actually send me coffee. It sends me money to buy coffee with, presumably. I actually spend it all on the channel. because all I buy with it is cameras and motion VFX, graphics and cool stuff, which you guys probably are tired of. No one ever mentions them. No one ever says, well, you have the coolest little widgets, or I'm tired of these widgets. I really have no feedback on those. I like to use different ones and like little effects and titles and stuff, because I feel like it adds some punch to a channel that is mostly me just talking to you. And yes, I may be using that as an excuse for not getting out and filming more things of my day. That's surprisingly hard. And some days I'm never leaving the office during daylight. So when I go out and you see me walking around, I'm doing that for you. I pretty much am sitting here all the time. Or when I go to the beach, yes, in theory I could film, but it's difficult because you're always with people, and to film anything, I've got to get up and leave the people I'm with, carry cameras around. It's harder than it seems. Obviously, I'm also making excuses, and I recognize that, but it is not easy when you're as busy as I am. Every moment that I get to take a moment away from anything is suddenly, oh, look, I got to go film, and it's hard. And having the daylight to do it is the hardest part, because all the work I do is easiest done, and the customers I support is during the daytime normally. So that makes it a much bigger challenge. That's the hardest thing, is that I have lots of time and really want to do it at night. And I'm hoping once I get to the US, I'm going to get some lights and stuff and really up the game so that I can do some more in-studio work and get a lot like this type of recording. In theory, I could do more of it in the house with artificial lights, which is less interesting in many cases, but at least I could make it look and sound good, and then intersperse other things. But all that to say, cameras, lenses, tripods, lights, motion VFX stuff, Final Cut Pro, all the things that I use to make this channel is where all that money goes. I'm at such a deficit, there's nowhere close to paying for itself. But that's cool, but that's where the money goes. And of course, if you could share on social media, it makes a huge difference. All right, today's topic is, and now I have to remember what it was. Well, there was two questions from BPW. It is, are there secondhand stores and like thrift stores in Leon specifically? Obviously there are in the country. In Leon, can you get things, presumably like clothing, but also furnishing and home goods and stuff? The answer is yes. Absolutely, secondhand stores are incredibly common for all types of things. That is a very normal thing, clothing especially. And as I'm recording this, there's a clothing tienda set up on the sidewalk out front that just popped up. It's probably gone now because the rain is starting. They were trying to be there when church let out, which they were. All through the city, there are stores selling secondhand stuff. Now, in some cases, it's secondhand from Nicaragua, so people selling things that they've had previously. But in most cases, it is secondhand stuff being brought in from the United States or Canada or wherever, but mostly the United States, and being sold here. And that's a really common thing that people don't realize. Those donation bins that you see all around the United States, most of those are private. They're not charities. They're actually companies. If you read it carefully, if it's a charity, it will say all over it. Otherwise, it's going to be a private company. You're just donating. It's not a tax write-off. You don't have any way to get paperwork, so there's nothing false, right? They're just saying donate some stuff to us and we'll go sell it. That's what they do. So they collect it in big bundles, and they ship it places like Nicaragua and sell it for dollars a bundle. So these secondhand stores buy giant pallets of secondhand clothing or other items, and then sell them in stores all over the country, including here in Leon. There's whole districts. Some of them do have new things. Very rarely is it new. It may be, if it is new, it's almost always seconds, like something was wrong with the run, or they produced too many and it's being offloaded. Actual stores that are going to be selling brand new designer stuff that is straight from the designer are almost exclusively going to be in the malls in Managua. You can certainly get that stuff, but it is not the norm. Average everyday people, meaning 80 to 90% of the population, are buying secondhand, whether it's actually used or overruns or whatever. Those kinds of stores, though, they dominate the clothing market. Now, for furniture, it's not quite the same. Lots of stuff is just made in the country. There is new stuff available. But going through the barrios, you will actually find people with furniture stores out of their houses. Sometimes they'll just pull furniture out of their house and set it on the sidewalk and set out on the sidewalk and hope you notice that they have too much furniture and you'll stop by and buy it. It gets a little bit weird sometimes. But things like that, pretty much any product for your home, either just on the street, sometimes in El Centro, and often in the mercados, you're going to be able to go and get used stuff there. Plus, places like Mendoza, while it's not used per se, a lot of the stuff is like overruns or whatever, and they've got TVs and fans and like electronics and appliances and stuff like that, like higher end stuff, but at really amazing prices. But often they'll have one TV that's 65 inch, one TV that's 55 inch, a whole bunch of fans, but in different colors and styles, and they're just getting like big bulk of things kind of randomly, so that they just have little. You can always find something that you need, but you can't like do research ahead of time and be like, oh, I wish I got this model and that. No. It's like, I would like a large TV. All right, let's go see what large TV they have. Here's the 2 large TVs they have, a Samsung and an LG. Which one would you like? Right, and that's like it. And like, well, I need 10 of them. I'm sorry, we have 1 of each. That's it. The boxes you see are the boxes you get. They will open it up while you're there, pull it out, plug it in, show you that it works, put it back in the box, hand it to you, and away you go. That's how it works, right? But that kind of stuff, like that relatively affordable products for home, whether it's clothing or furniture or whatever, yes, all over the place. So you probably won't have any problem finding that stuff. Now, the bigger question that was asked was, how do you spell Subtiava? Is it S-U-T-I-V-I-A-V-A? Is it S-U-B-T-I-B-A? Like, you see me write it different ways, and this is a really interesting one and requires a bit of explanation. So that's our real topic for the day. That's what we're going to talk about. So first of all, you have to understand that in Spanish, archaically, there was only one letter, and that is the B. The letter B has the sound like an English V, almost. It's kind of like a B and a V combined, but it's closer to the sound of a V, and traditionally, the letter B was used for that sound like in Latin. So, if you go back to Old Spanish, you will never see a V, yet the sound appears everywhere in the language. Over time, and I don't know the details of exactly why this is, but the letter B and the letter V both became introduced while using written Spanish. Keep in mind that both letters make the exact same sound. They are 2 different letters for writing the same sound. And this is not the only situation in Spanish that has this. We'll talk about another one another time, but you see it in the word Curacao as it is written here in the country, as the store is written with 1 letter, but Curacao, the Portuguese word for heart, is written the same way, but when translated to Spanish to corazón, it is written with a different letter. But we will save that. We'll reference this video at the time that we do. I don't know if we really will, but I'll try. So, 2 letters, same sound. When you learn in English the different words, you don't pronounce them in that Spanish way, and you often find that confusing when working with Spanish speakers because they are pronouncing B's and V's exactly the same, but because you know what they're trying to say, you hear it a little bit differently, and when we say it, we always say it differently. It's simply how it is. If you're trying to say bebe, bebe, and if you're trying to say to live, vivir, you're going to make one a b sound and one a v sound because that's how you see it written. But in reality, you should be making both of them with kind of a b, v combined sound that's exactly the same. When spoken, it becomes very confusing, but you have a lot of context when you're speaking to make you realize what's being said. When you see it written, having the B's and the V's make life a lot easier. You can instantly recognize the words. So while there's official spellings now, in recent times, the pronunciation of the 2 remains identical. Here in Nicaragua, where the language is one of the oldest versions of Spanish spoken in the world, you get a lot more ambiguity on that than you do other places. So, for example, in Spain, when you write voy a la cama, I'm going to bed, it's going to be a V every time. But here in Nicaragua, because the language became solidified here in the country at a time when Spain had not solidified when they were going to use B's and V's yet, they really locked in. So one of the things that is understood about Nicaragua, we'll talk about the Vos thing in another time, but it has this ancient colonial Spanish that became separated from Spain and the other colonies very early on in the colonial period. And so it remains more or less a living spoken museum to a colonial Spanish language. So Nicaragua speaks an older Spanish than Spain, than Mexico, than Guatemala, than Panama. And that's really interesting, and it explains a lot of what you see when you see the language written. Nicaragua also has a very low rate of writing the language. It is in Spain, you get a very high writing rate, and the same in Mexico, but here in Nicaragua, it is primarily a spoken language. And that means a lot of people have never actually been taught how to spell a lot of words. And so words that you would use every day, like voy to I am going, and bailar for to dance, you will often see them written boy, B-O-Y for voy, and bailar with a V for to dance. Pretty much any place you see a B or a V, you may see it written the opposite from colloquial Nicaraguan Spanish, from Nicaraguense. So get used to that. Those are interchangeable, and it does not change the pronunciation of the word. Subtiava is a great example of where this is really complicated. Now, Subtiava is an indigenous community. So the word Subtiava is not even Spanish. So it doesn't have a really strong official Spanish spelling or Latin spelling. So that means it's an extremely floating thing. And we'll talk about the floating thing in another episode with Spanish with Nicaraguan names, because that's crazy too. But this is a Nicaraguan name in a way. So this is a archaic indigenous name being written, transliterated into Spanish. When it was originally transliterated hundreds of years ago, because this is a colonial region, it was spelled Subtiaba, Subtiava. Over time, it was really hard to pronounce the initial B. So for a lot of people, they started dropping it, or people simply wouldn't hear it when it's said. It's very subtle. So try to say it as a V sound when written as a B, Subtiava. When you see that written as a B, a lot of people, especially non-Spaniards, are going to start pronouncing it Subtiava. And of course, in English, a B before a T is almost always silent, or has a certain assumption of being silent, like in the word subtle. And so it's easy to see that letter either disappearing because no one can hear it, and then when they write it down, they have no idea that it's there, or disappearing because it's believed to be a silent letter. In either case, over time, that initial B got less and less used, and over time, the writing of the name became more common to use a V after that was introduced to the language. So if you look at old writings, it is Subtiava with the double B. If you look at the iglesia itself, which has the plaque, which is the name of the church, from hundreds and hundreds of years ago, it is with the double B. And so that is the official name of the church. That is the official original name of the indigenous community. That is its real name. If you then see maps that are more recent, it has been a push to drop the first B and convert the second B into a V. And that is, it's shorter and it's much easier to explain to a visitor what that word is, Subtiava. And so when you're looking at Google Maps, that's what you're going to see. If you're looking at official forms from the Alcaldía, that's what you're likely to see. But there is nothing official. The most correct is the double B. The most used is the single V, and any combination thereof, which there are 6 of, are all valid because it is a spoken word, not a written word. And in the situations where it is a name and it has no official, all things that sound like are correct. I kid you not, it actually has 6 spellings of its name. Only 4 of them are broadly accepted, but 4 of them are broadly accepted. The things that are generally not accepted is when you have the double V sound, but they're not consistently B's or V's. So if you do a B, then a V, or a V, then a B, that's weird. But as long as you have 2 V's, 2 B's, 1 V, or 1 B, you're good to go. No problems, no questions asked. And so you can write whatever you like. If you want to make it sound formal and old, double B. If you want to make it sound modern and hipster and revisionist, single V. It doesn't really matter. Certainly, most people when searching on it will use the single V. So you want to write it that way if you're going to be tagging something that people are searching on. If you want to be writing a formal thing with a real name, the double B is best. This is a challenge that you will see around Nicaragua beyond your wildest imaginations. And it comes up in almost every conversation because people are now using WhatsApp and using it in a way that they've never used anything before. Email was never super popular here. Texting was never super popular. Just written letters were never super popular. It was always spoken word and telephone. Traditionally, obviously all those things existed, but these are how normal people communicated most of the time. And the number of people in the population who have completed high school is actually pretty low. And even those that do complete it are often in their 20s. You tend to go much later than you do in the US. And so the actual frequency of running into people who have never been taught how to spell these words is quite high. And I can tell you, I have a friend who is living in the United States, and when he writes messages to me, he spells his own name, which has a B or a V in it, one way or the other, depending on how he feels that day, I guess. And when he writes the word voy, I am going, he definitely writes it with a B most of the time, which you never see written. It is one of the most confusing things to see the word boy and have to remember you should be hearing the word voy, and then you realize it's the word voy. But that's really common. And we've had employees who have the same thing. Everyone writes their name one way, they write it another, because everyone just hears it. No one asks how to spell anything. You write things phonetically and nobody says a thing. So as long as you are writing and it sounds correctly, that is accepted in Nicaraguan. In Spain, it is not. There's a very official how to write every word. But here in Nicaragua, that does not exist. And so you just have to be flexible with that. Thanks for joining me. Like and subscribe, do all that stuff. I'll give you just a second while you do that. All right, good. I will see all of you tomorrow.